March 28, 1945. Near the Rhine River, western Germany. The rain had finally stopped, but the silence it left behind felt even heavier. A column of exhausted American soldiers moved carefully through the ruins of a farming village that no longer belonged to anyone. Smoke drifted from shattered rooftops. A church bell hung crooked in its tower. Burned wagons blocked the muddy road, and frightened civilians watched from broken windows without saying a word. Private Daniel Mercer froze. "Sergeant." He pointed toward an old stone barn. The wooden doors stood open. Inside, nearly 50 German soldiers were standing in perfect formation. None of them reached for a weapon. None tried to escape. At the center stood an older officer wearing the faded remains of a general's uniform. His boots were polished despite the mud. His gloves were spotless. His posture never wavered. He simply looked at the Americans. Then he spoke in careful English. "I surrender only to General George Patton." The words echoed through the empty barn. No one moved. Sergeant William Hayes lowered his rifle slightly. What did he just say? Corporal Frank Ellis swallowed. He wants Patton himself. The civilians outside exchanged frightened glances. Even the German soldiers behind their commander looked uneasy, as though they wished he had stayed silent. Hayes stepped forward. "You'll surrender to us." The general remained perfectly still. "I will surrender only to General Patton." The air suddenly felt colder. Nobody understood why. The prisoners were disarmed within minutes. The mysterious general never resisted. He handed over his pistol with both hands, removed the ammunition himself, and placed the weapon on a wooden crate. Not once did he ask for food. Not once did he ask about his own safety. Instead, he kept repeating the same sentence. "I request General Patton." Word spread quickly through the regiment. Captain Robert Langston questioned the prisoners one after another. Most refused to meet his eyes. One finally whispered through an American translator. "General Karl Brenner knows something." "What?" The prisoner shook his head. "He says only Patton should hear it." Langston frowned. Nothing about the situation made sense. If the man had committed crimes, why insist on speaking only to one American commander? If he possessed valuable intelligence, why wait until the collapse of Germany? By sunset, reports had reached division headquarters. Colonel Henry Collins read the field message twice. Then a third time. Finally he looked toward Major Edward Pierce. "What do you make of this?" Pierce rubbed his tired eyes. "I think the general is buying time. Or he's afraid of something worse than prison." No one answered. Outside, trucks continued carrying refugees past the command post. The war was clearly ending. Yet somehow this strange surrender felt like the beginning of something much darker. The following morning, military investigators arrived. General Brenner answered every routine question politely. Name. Rank. Unit. Years of service. He answered them all. But whenever investigators asked about military operations, missing civilians, destroyed villages, or retreat orders, his response never changed. "I will speak only to General Patton." Hours became another day. The mystery spread through neighboring commands. Rumors multiplied. Some claimed Brenner knew the location of hidden Nazi gold. Others believed he possessed secret plans involving Hitler's final defenses. One frightened civilian told American guards a different story. She introduced herself as Anna Keller. She held the hand of a young boy no older than 10. "He came through our village 6 months ago." She pointed toward Brenner's holding tent. "He stopped his own soldiers." Captain Langston looked confused. "Stop them from what?" Anna struggled to speak. "They wanted to burn every house." The little boy looked down. "My father was hiding wounded people." She continued. The general ordered everyone outside. Langston waited. He looked at the houses for a long time. And then he told his officers to lower their weapons. Another silence followed. He said the war had already stolen enough. Langston exchanged uncertain looks with his interpreter. That wasn't the story anyone expected. Later that evening another witness arrived. An elderly German doctor. His account was completely different. No. The doctor shook with anger. General Brenner ordered executions near the forest road. Captain Langston leaned closer. Are you certain? I buried them myself. Now nothing fit together. One witness described mercy. Another described murder. Both sounded believable. Military intelligence searched abandoned headquarters connected to Brenner's command. Hidden inside a damaged safe they found several sealed folders. Many records had been burned. Others survived only partially. One page listed civilian evacuations. Another listed suspected resistance fighters. Several names were crossed out in red pencil. No explanation followed. Investigators argued deep into the night. Nobody could determine whether Brenner had saved lives or ended them. Eventually the reports climbed higher through the chain of command. Corps headquarters reviewed everything. Then Army headquarters. Finally, one message reached General George Patton. He read every page without interruption. No one spoke. Patton closed the folder slowly. When was he captured? 2 days ago, sir. He asked for me. Yes, sir. Patton stood. Prepare transportation. No dramatic speech followed. No raised voice. Only calm instructions. Several hours later a convoy rolled through the muddy camp. Soldiers straightened instinctively. Conversation disappeared. Even prisoners turned toward the arriving vehicles. Patton stepped out wearing his polished helmet and heavy riding boots. He didn't hurry. He simply walked. The room inside the headquarters tent fell completely silent. General Brenner stood waiting. For the first time since his capture, emotion crossed his face. Not fear. Recognition. Patton looked directly at him. So. Brenner nodded once. You finally came. Patton removed his gloves. You insisted. Everyone waited. Neither man rushed to speak. Finally Brenner broke the silence. I have no wish to defend the Reich. Patton watched him carefully. I believe you. I came to confess. No one moved. Brenner reached into his tunic pocket. American guards immediately stepped forward. Patton raised one hand. Easy. The general slowly produced a folded notebook. I recorded everything. The pages contained names. Dates. Orders. Locations. Entire villages. Executions. Forced evacuations. Officers responsible. Civilian witnesses. Even German commanders who had secretly ignored criminal orders. Patton turned several pages. His expression never changed. Why keep this? Brenner answered quietly. Because someone must know. Patton looked up. And why not tell investigators? They would think I was bargaining. Weren't you? No. Another long silence settled over the room. Finally Patton asked the question no one else had. Why ask for me? Brenner's shoulders lowered slightly. Because you would know the difference between surrender and responsibility. Outside, wind pushed against the canvas walls. Inside, every soldier remained frozen. Hours passed. Military lawyers examined the notebook. Intelligence officers verified names. Several surviving witnesses identified officers listed within its pages. One by one, terrible truths emerged. Brenner had obeyed criminal orders early in the war. Later he secretly delayed others. Sometimes he protected civilians. Sometimes he failed. Sometimes he lacked the courage to refuse. The notebook was not a defense. It was a record of guilt. Late that evening Brenner requested another meeting. Patton entered alone except for one recorder. The older German general looked exhausted. "I don't deserve forgiveness." Patton remained standing. "That's not my decision." "I know." Brenner stared at the table. "I believed obedience was honor." His voice weakened. "I learned too late." Patton answered calmly. "Too many men learned that too late." Brenner closed his eyes. "There are still officers trying to destroy the evidence." Patton listened. "They'll disappear before any tribunal reaches them." The recorder continued writing every word. When the meeting ended, Patton walked outside into the darkness. Colonel Collins approached carefully. "What happens now, sir?" Patton looked toward the distant prisoner compound. "Justice." The colonel hesitated. "The tribunals?" Patton paused. "They'll judge countless men." He looked back toward headquarters. "But not every decision waits for history." That night, new evidence arrived from liberated villages. Several surviving Allied prisoners confirmed executions ordered under Brenner's command years earlier. Other testimony confirmed he had later prevented additional massacres. He had become both witness and participant. A man trapped by choices he never truly escaped. Before dawn, military authorities convened an emergency wartime tribunal under battlefield conditions for crimes directly tied to the theater of operations and supported by the evidence then available. No one celebrated. No one argued loudly. The proceedings were brief because Brenner himself admitted the essential facts. When asked whether he wished to contest the charges, he answered quietly. No. The officers present exchanged heavy looks. One finally asked why. Brenner replied with surprising calm. "If I deny what happened now, then every name inside that notebook becomes meaningless." Outside, soldiers waited in complete silence. Nobody smoked. Nobody joked. Word spread that the German general had accepted responsibility. Private Mercer looked toward Sergeant Hayes. "Do you think he's afraid?" Hayes answered after several seconds. "I think he was afraid years ago." The eastern sky slowly turned gray. Patton stood apart from the others. His face revealed nothing. Colonel Collins approached once more. "Any final orders, sir?" Patton spoke without raising his voice. "Treat him with dignity." "Yes, sir." "No insults." "Understood." "No celebration." "Yes, sir." "And notify every witness that their testimony saved future lives." The soldiers nodded. When Brenner was escorted forward, he walked without resistance. He stopped only once. Not to plead. Not to bargain. He simply looked toward the growing sunrise. It should have ended differently. No one answered. Moments later, the sentence imposed by the tribunal was carried out. The camp remained silent long afterward. There were no cheers. Only the distant sound of birds returning to fields that had known far too much war. Later that morning, investigators reopened Brenner's notebook. Using its information, Allied forces located hidden records before they could be destroyed. Several officers attempting to flee were captured. Missing civilians were identified. Families finally learned what had happened to loved ones who had vanished years before. The notebook became evidence not because it erased guilt, but because it exposed the truth. Before leaving the headquarters, Patton spoke quietly to several young officers. Never confuse loyalty with obedience. No one interrupted. A soldier serves honor first. The word stayed with them long after the war ended. Years later, those who had witnessed that strange surrender remembered very different details. Some remembered the silence inside the barn. Others remembered the frightened civilians. Many remembered the notebook. But almost everyone remembered Patton's calm. Not because he spoke loudly. Because he understood that victory meant little if justice disappeared with the smoke of battle. Wars are remembered for their explosions, their advances, and their victories. Yet history is often shaped by quieter moments, when exhausted soldiers must decide whether vengeance or justice will guide their next step, when truth arrives too late to save the innocent but still early enough to protect the future. Even in humanity's darkest conflicts, courage was not measured only by the willingness to fight. Sometimes it was measured by the willingness to face responsibility, tell the truth, and accept its cost. What would you have done? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more World War II stories where humanity, war, and difficult decisions collided, make sure to subscribe.